As a construct, history is too often revised to match contemporary views. It has been said that each generation must rewrite history in order to understand it. The opposite is true. Moderns revise history to make it palatable, not to understand it. Those who edit history to popular taste each decade will never understand the past, neither the horrors or glories of which the human race is equally capable, and for that reason, they will fail to understand themselves. None of them were equipped, trained, or mentally prepared for combat. For the first time in recent history, American ground units had been committed during the initial days of a war. There had been no allies to hold the line while America prepared. For the first time, many Americans could understand what had happened to Britain at Dunkirk. In 1950 a Marine Corps officer was still an officer, and a sergeant behaved the way good sergeants had behaved since the time of Caesar, expecting no nonsense, allowing none. And Marine leaders had never lost sight of their primary, their only, mission, which was to fight. The Marine Corps was not made pleasant for men who served in it. It remained the same hard, dirty, brutal way of life it had always been. Because the American people have traditionally taken a warlike, but not military, attitude to battle, and because they have always coupled a certain belligerence, no American likes being pushed around, with a complete unwillingness to prepare for combat. The Korean War was difficult, perhaps the most difficult in their history. And while the most desperate hours of the men within the perimeter were passing, a second battle had been raging in their rear, back in the continental United States. When American soldiers went into action, it had become customary to provide them with a free issue of candy, cigarettes, and beer. In the places American troops fought, there were rarely any handy taverns or supermarkets. Reported to the home front, the beer issue rapidly became a national controversy. Temperance, church, and various civic groups bombarded the Pentagon and Congress with howls of protest against the corruption of American youth. One legislator, himself a man who took a brew now and then, tried a flanking attack against the complainers, saying on the floor of the House, "Water in Korea is more deadly than bullets." But no one either polled the troops for their opinion or said openly that a man who was old enough to kill and be killed was also old enough to have a beer if he wanted it. Unable to shake the habit of acquiescence, the army leaders bowed to the storm of public wrath. On September 12, the day the 3rd Battalion, 7th Cavalry, lost half its strength securing Hill 314, Far East Command cut off its beer ration. The troops could still buy beer, but only when and if the PX caught up with them. If another war follows Korea, if American policy is threatened anywhere on the globe, it will not be years and months, as in the 2 world wars, or days, as in Korea, but only hours until American troops are committed. In battle, Americans learn fast, those who survive. The pity is, their society seems determined to make them wait until the shooting starts. The word should go out sooner. An army in the field, in contact with the enemy, can remain idle only at its peril. Deterioration of training, physical fitness, and morale is immediate and progressive, despite the strongest command measures. The Frenchman who said that the one thing that cannot be done with bayonets is to sit on them spoke an eternal truth. From the first, the peasantry saw little to lose through communist rule, and perhaps much to gain. Only much later, when the land is collectivized and the iron hand shows through the paternal glove, and when it is too late, does the peasant who has been communized realize his loss. Communized, he ceases to be an individual man, losing an identity that even the most abject poverty could not take from his before. During the Korean War, the United States found that it could not enforce international morality and that its people had to live and continue to fight in a basically immoral world. They could oppose that which they regarded as evil, but they could not destroy it without risking their own destruction. Marine human material was not one whit better than that of the human society from which it came. But it had been hammered into form in a different forge, hardened with a different fire. The Marines were the closest thing to legions the nation had. They would follow their colors from the shores of home to the seacoast of Bohemia, and fight well either place. Like the Indian Wars, it would leave a troubled feeling, a trauma, in its wake. Crusades, even when failures, are emotionally satisfying. Wars of containment, wars of policy, are not. They are hard to justify unless it is admitted that power, not idealism, is the dominant factor in the world, and that idealism must be backed by power. It has been said that each generation must rewrite history in order to understand it. The opposite is true. Moderns revise history to make it palatable, not to understand it. Those who edit history to popular taste each decade will never understand the past, neither the horrors or glories of which the human race is equally capable, and for that reason, they will fail to understand themselves.